The room smelled faintly of starch and roses, that strange mix of pressed tuxedos and fresh boutonnieres. Outside the door, laughter rolled like soft thunder, but in here it was quiet enough to hear the hum of the lights. Stephen stood by the mirror, sleeves rolled, his tie already perfect. Mine wasn't. I told myself it was just nerves for the ceremony, but it wasn't. It was him, the way he moved, unhurried and certain, as if he owned every moment he stepped into. He noticed my fumbling and smiled, small, knowing. "Here," he said, stepping closer. The air changed shape between us. My reflection looked steadier than I felt. He reached up, fingertips grazing the fabric near my collar, and suddenly every sound outside the door disappeared. His nearness was quiet fire, not touch, not distance, something trembling in between. The mirror caught the two of us framed in its light, his taller figure leaning in, me trying to remember how to breathe. His scent, cedar, rain, and something warm, filled the narrow space. He tugged gently at the knot. The gesture was simple, ordinary. My heartbeat wasn't. It amazed me how routine could become revelation in a single breath. He said something about symmetry, about keeping it straight, and I nodded, though words felt foreign in my mouth. The world had shrunk to his hands, and the faint brush of his sleeve against my chest. My mind begged for distance. My body stayed still. Sometimes walls don't fall with noise. They dissolve in silence. He leaned back to inspect his work, head tilted, a faint grin curving his lips. "Better," he murmured. My throat was dry. I could have thanked him, joked, anything, but speech would have broken the spell. His fingers lingered on the edge of the tie for a second longer than needed. 1 second, and I knew nothing would be the same after it. He turned slightly, our shoulders brushing. A spark, not seen, only felt, flickered up my spine. I caught his reflection again. His eyes weren't just brown, but layered, stormy, uncertain. He looked like someone fighting the same battle I was losing. Maybe the danger wasn't his touch. Maybe it was in being seen. Outside, someone called his name. We both froze, the moment balanced on a single breath. His hand fell away slowly, as if reluctant to return to his side. I forced myself to blink, to step back, to remember where we were. He smiled again, polite, effortless, but his voice came out softer. "We should go." I nodded, pretending calm, but my pulse was still caught in that space between us. When he opened the door, laughter and music spilled in, too bright, too real. Yet under it all, I could still feel the ghost of his touch, light as air, heavy as truth. And that's when I knew my tie wasn't the only thing he'd fixed. Something inside me had come undone. The ceremony began in a blur of white flowers and camera flashes. I stood among the groomsmen, trying to remember the rhythm of breathing. Stephen was only a few feet away, sunlight tracing his profile. Every time he adjusted his cuff or looked toward the aisle, the world narrowed to that single motion. It's strange how distance doesn't always mean space. Sometimes it just measures how much you're pretending. Vows echoed through the hall, bright and sure. People smiled, clapped, wiped tears. I did the same, but every sound felt a step removed, like I was watching life through glass. Stephen glanced back once, brief as a heartbeat, and our eyes met over the sea of guests. I told myself it was nothing, that he was just looking around, but the lies sat heavy, solid, familiar. During photos, the room smelled of champagne and confetti. He laughed at the others, easy and genuine, while I forced my grin for the camera's flash. When the group broke apart, he found me near the window. "You survived," he said, voice low enough to vanish under the chatter. I nodded, not trusting mine. It wasn't what he said. It was how softly he said it, as if the sentence had edges that could cut. Evening settled over the reception like velvet. The fairy lights blinked across the ceiling, turning everyone golden. I watched him dance with the bride's sister, his laughter rising with the music. Something inside me twisted. Admiration, ache, something unnamed. When he returned for a drink, our sleeves brushed again. A single accidental touch can rewrite an entire night. Later, away from the crowd, I found him on the terrace. The city stretched below us. Soft lights, quiet wind. He didn't turn when I joined him. He just said, Beautiful view. I could have agreed, but my eyes stayed on him. The tie he'd fixed earlier was still perfect. I wasn't. Some moments don't ask for words. They just wait to see if you'll dare to stand inside them. He finally faced me. "You've been quiet," he said. The question hid inside the statement. I managed a smile, trying not to ruin your perfect handiwork. His laugh was soft, almost shy, and for a heartbeat the noise from the hall faded again, leaving only wind and heartbeat and memory. It felt like standing on the edge of something you can't name, but can't step back from either. He looked down, then met my gaze again, slower this time. "That tie suits you," he murmured. I could have said thank you. Instead, I said, "You make it hard to forget who tied it." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything we couldn't admit. He smiled small, real. Maybe the truth doesn't need to be spoken to exist. It just needs two people brave enough not to look away. Someone called his name from inside, breaking the spell. He exhaled, nodded once, and turned toward the door. Before leaving, he glanced back, a look that said, "I feel it too, even if we'd never name it." When he disappeared into the light, I touched the knot of my tie and felt the echo of his hands there. He had fixed my tie for the wedding, but in the quiet after, I realized he'd also taught me how easily armor becomes confession.